All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Smirking Gun. This is Rob here with another Lost Halloween video. This one, man, going through these, I was really disappointed that I didn't, that things happened, and I really wish I could have released them when they were first aired. This one is a one that I clearly had a lot of fun talking about. This is a long one despite, on top of this little intro here to get you guys like back in time to 2021, the time that was right before everything like this is where pretty much like stopped and got real got real sketchy on whenever I would come back and do anything. So I really hope that you guys like these videos that I'm finding and polishing up. Not really. I'm not really polishing anything. Uh, but I'm still putting them back out there, and I hope that you guys have whoever finds this channel. It's been a long day, folks. I just spent a ton of money getting my car out of the shop, so it's like, I forgot I still wanted to put an intro before this motherfucker. So, without further ado, let's go back to 2021 and my obvious. The last thing I'll say is that this video was definitely one of those that was setting up what I plan to do with the X Files. So you'll see a lot of X Files love in this, and I hope you guys get excited to see the X Files content that's going to be up on the channel pretty soon. Pretty soon. It's a little bit ways, but before the end of the year. So get ready for that and enjoy the video. Bye.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and we are back yet again with more Halloween 2021 reviews. We're not stopping, man. We're not stopping. We've really done a lot this month, and I don't care who watches it. This is just fun to do, and I'm having a fun time doing it. Will I be back next year? I hope so. I hope so, because I want to talk about some of the sequels to some of these movies we're talking about. Today we're talking about one that has multiple sequels. We're talking about 2000's Final Destination, written by Jeffrey Reddick and directed by James Wong. Almost screwed it up because I always get, whenever I say James Wong, I want to say Glenn Morgan and James Wong. Because as a lot of things do on this channel, they go back to the X-Files. And this one has the X-Files written all over it, pal. Okay, so if you like what we're doing on the channel, make sure you're hitting the like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Helps with motivation, and welcome to the conversation as always. Returning subscribers, how you doing? Welcome back. Let's jump in, okay, because I got a lot to say about this one. This one is probably going to run longer than normal because this... oh boy. So like I said, this movie came out March 17th of 2000. I was 24 years old. And I was still watching everything that came down the pipe. I was living in Wisconsin. I was living in Racine, Wisconsin. And this was when DVDs were just starting to roll out, and they were having really cool features. This is when you could get cool features and deleted scenes and alternate stuff, and they started putting really... Final Destination DVDs always had really cool stuff on them about death and stuff. And the Final Destination series, like as I Know What You Did Last Summer. And that's the sequel. We'll talk about that next year. But like Scream... I like pretty much most of the Scream franchise. Now, Final Destination, on the other hand, is a different animal because it's more like my guilty pleasure franchise of horror. Like I don't have the same attachments to Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Halloween that other people do. I like Nightmare on Elm Street just fine. Don't really have much use for Jason or Michael Myers. Just don't. I don't like slashers that much. I like Scream because it kind of takes that slasher thing and fucks around with it. But I like this because it's just fucking bananas. And this is the franchise where I really don't care about the characters. This is the franchise where I really do just want to see how in what crazy Goldberg machine are these people going to die, if you know what I mean, like the cause and effect, the cartoonness of it all, because it all is just like when you lay out the deaths and how they happen. It's just kind of interesting to see it all go down. But this is the original. This is the one where death, like when you first see it, like it's like, wait a minute, is death really a thing? Is death really following them, or is this just, bad, bad, bad fucking luck? So, if you don't know what Final Destination is, right? A group of kids and their teachers and a whole bunch of other people are going to Paris, including a screaming baby and a very, very mentally and physically challenged man who is on this plane. Why am I bringing it up? Because one of the characters, played by Brendan Fair, is like, God would have to be really fucked up to take down this plane. Well, if I believed in God, you'd be right. So, the main character, played by Devon Sawa, has a vision, an extremely vivid vision of the plane blowing up. And we're talking full spoilers, so if you have not seen Final Destination, get the fuck out of here, man. Go watch Final Destination. It takes an hour and a half. Then come back here and watch me talk about it. He gets a vision that the plane blows up, and he gets up and freaks out, and a bunch of them end up off the plane. And then everybody's freaked out about it. And one by one, though, they all start dying in crazy ways, as if death is actually stalking these people and course correcting the fact that it didn't get everybody it wanted on the plane. Now, let's first, as always, talk about our cast. Right? So you have Devon Sawa, right? Devon Sawa, who I guess they call a teen heartthrob. I don't... I think he's all right. He's all right. I feel like he's kind of just an average guy, which was one of the reasons why I liked him in some of these early movies. I liked his voice. I liked Idle Hands. But this was his main claim to fame until recently, when he made that weird comeback, if you want to call it. Don't call it a comeback. He's been here for years. In John Travolta's The Fanatic. And I thought that the standout moment in that film is when he's talking about Limp Bizkit, and I was laughing my fucking ass off. But Devon Sawa in this movie plays Alex, and what I really wanted to know was, like, why didn't he come back for the sequel? Because he's talked about in the sequel, and apparently in the sequel to this, he was supposed to be involved and then die of like a fucking crazy chemical thing. I think it had to do with like flesh-eating bacteria. Like, fuck off! Like, man, the poor guy. But the thing is like, in retrospect, you find out in the second one, oh, a brick fell and hit him on the head. And honestly, as anticlimactic as that is, it's way better. It's way better to get killed by a fucking brick and just be dead than have flesh-eating bacteria. That's all I'm saying. Ali Larter is in this as Clear Rivers. Ali Larter was all over the place in this time period too. I always got her mixed up with the girl from Cranked and Eurotrip. And why can't I remember her name? But I always got her mixed up with her. I think they were both in Varsity Blues, which I fucking hate Varsity Blues. If I ever review that, get ready for some... See, I don't like to shit on things on purpose, so I probably won't review Varsity Blues, but fuck that movie. It also stars Kerr Smith as Carter Horton, who I think was on Dawson's Creek back in the day. Didn't watch it. Kristen Cloak, who is married to Glenn Morgan, the co-worker... co-worker... Glenn Morgan and James Wan are like the Coen brothers of horror movies. All right? Glenn Morgan and James Wan produce things. James is the one who usually produces them, and they write together a lot. And yes, it is the same James Wan and Glenn Morgan who made Dragon Ball Evolution. And I don't know what to say about that. But we will talk about Glenn Morgan and James Wan in just a second. But Kristen Cloak is in this as Valerie Luton, the teacher who gets off the plane, who also was in a X-Files episode about a cult, and it was The Field Where I Died from season 4 that she was in that one. Sean William Scott, Stifler himself, Billy Hitchcock in this. Hitchcock. Speaking of, we should say that most of the characters in this have names that are based on like people involved in horror or characters from horror. You have Amanda Detmer as Terry Cheney, Chad Donella as Todd Wagner, Roger Guenveur Smith, and Daniel Roebuck play the FBI agents Shrek and Wine. Brendan Fair from Roswell is in this briefly as George Wagner, the brother of Chad Donella, who plays Todd Wagner. Forbes Angus, a staple of Canadian-made TV, and he's all over the X-Files too. He plays Larry Murnau, and there's a whole bunch of other people in here. Holy cow, James Kirk. Oh, nope, that's going over some of the whole, like, other things. But one other person I want to point out is Robert Wisden, who plays Alex's father in this. He was also on the X-Files very famously as he played the character of Pusher twice. There's almost never any callbacks on the X-Files. Pusher was so popular they made 2. Sick old Bob Modell. He was in that. And that's the cast. Now, like I said, they all start getting picked off one by one. Now let's talk about Glenn Morgan and James Wong. All right, so these guys back then, and they came out, right. You had the first season of X-Files, and you would see guys and the writers like they'd write an episode here and there. You know, a bunch of people were working on that show, and they became like some of the writers of some of the most popular X-Files ever done. When it comes to X-Files episodes, they and Vince Gilligan and like Darren Morgan are like top tier writers for the X-Files. They killed it. And they also worked pretty extensively on Chris Carter's other show, Millennium, for a while as well. Then they started getting these movie offers, and they were making movies like Final Destination and Willard. And look, to different degrees, these movies have been all right. I like their stuff for some point of it. I think I like their television stuff much more. But they also make movies like Jet Li's The One, you know. So I'm a bigger fan of their TV writing and producing than I am of their film work. But they were big behind Final Destination. And one of the most interesting things, again, going back to the X-Files as always, is this was supposed to be an X-File. This was supposed to be an X-File about that revolved around Scully's brother and the same plane crash, and how this would be one of those X-Files, like a lot of X-Files, where a good chunk of them at least, where Scully and Mulder are just kind of the background characters trying to play catch-up to the weekly mystery, and how the events are unfolding to somebody else, and how Mulder and Scully are just kind of trying to play, you know, like keep up. And usually things just kind of play out, and they're like there to bear witness almost. You can see that. Now that I know that, you can see that all over this movie. It would have made a good two-parter, maybe. Kind of like Tempest Fugit and Max from season 4. If they did try to jam this in to like a 47-minute episode, because episodes ran a little bit longer back then, they could have done it. It would have felt a little more rushed, but I don't know. But you can definitely see in the characters played by Daniel Roebuck and Roger Grenier Smith as the FBI agents that they're fucking the replacements for Mulder and Scully. There are moments in here that are absolutely Mulder and Scully. There's a scene near the end where the Roger Smith actor is like, you know, there was a moment there where I almost believed him. And then the Daniel Roebuck character, FBI agent's like, you know what, man? Let me tell you something. Don't get mad, but sometimes you creep me out. And I was like, God, that is Mulder and Scully. That is written for Mulder and Scully right there. And a lot of other things happen in this, like in an X-File, like how the FBI agents are always just around. Just like Mulder and Scully, when they'd get like a case, right, and they'd get their hooks in it, they would always be right kind of where they needed to be, but not close enough to stop something from happening. Like they'd always kind of rush in at the very end of some horrible thing about to happen. It's all over this. So it really does feel like a repurposed X-Files script for a larger, they had to punch it up, expand it, make it larger for for film length. Or maybe this was the original, like, and it does still feel like that they would have to expand on things a lot more. They had a chance to expand on things more and give you a little bit more character. If there's a problem that I have with this, is that a lot of these characters are bare bones. You don't get enough time with them. They're just this character and this character and this character. They have like a trait. Some of them barely have no traits. Some of them are just like Chad Danella's character, who is Todd, right? His brother was on the plane. His brother died, and he was really good friends with Alex's character. So his character is just Alex's friend that got off the plane, and he likes girls. Kara Smith is just 80s dick. 80s jock dick. Amanda Detmer is 80s jock dick's girlfriend, who's way nicer than her 80s jock dick boyfriend. Ali Larter's the love interest who has this connection with him, and she and Alex get more because they're the leads. We get some more insight into her background and her life and her family. In fact, I would say we probably get more from her character than we really do of Alex. Alex is just the magnet to where everything is flowing from. He's the guy who saw everything. He's the guy who's feeling everything. He's the guy who's putting things together, and how that's all on his shoulders, but we really don't get any other insight into his character. He's just a teenager who has this thrust upon him. Billy is the one who's being bullied, played by Seann William Scott, by Carter, and he's just kind of happenstance there. It's really weird seeing Seann William Scott in this role, because this was post American Pie, where he played, I think Stifler's a fucking bully. I think the character is funny, but I also think he's a bully. And I'm wondering about, like, when was this movie filmed and when did it actually come out? Because Seann William Scott's acting in this does not feel very confident compared to his character Stifler in American Pie. In American Pie, his acting, while it's still, they're still young guys, that there's a confidence in that character's performance, in that actor's performance, that comes out on screen. And in this, he's like, I don't know, maybe he had a hard time playing somebody meek and bullied upon. When you look at this guy and you go, why is he being picked on by Kara Smith? Like, Seann William Scott probably wiped the floor with Kara Smith. I don't know, but it just feels like, it just doesn't feel like he'd be a bullied character. It just doesn't. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. But that's fine, So yeah, as far as characters go, and the teacher is just the teacher. She got off the plane. The other teacher died. She's got guilt over it, and she's freaked. That's her thing, is she does not now trust the students that got off the plane with her. And that is it. Okay, yeah, I think that's it as far as the people that got off the plane. So now we have to actually talk about the rest of it. Okay, so basically now that they're off the plane and they saw it, and I want to really say I really dug how the beginning plane sequence, the beginning vision of this movie is excellent. I love this because if it's your first time watching this, they do a really good job of making you feel like this is really happening. And when they cut away, I mean, they go to the nth, like how they show all these people's dies and perspectives that if this was like a dream, really, he couldn't have seen certain things. You know what I mean? This was a straight up vision, seeing all different aspects of this explosion. Thought that was done really well. Another thing that was done really well was The actual when they're off the plane and they see the plane explode, and you see it go up. You hear Billy react like, "Oh my God, what?" And then you hear that shake for a second. It all happens like in the space of like a couple of seconds. How the plane explodes and you get the reverberation where the glass shatters and you feel the quake of it all. The power of an exploding plane and how that actually would affect, other things. I thought that was really, really cool. So, but the rest of this, where they start to figure out, that death's still coming for them. Um, at the beginning of this, like, I love, you've got your whole life ahead of you, like all these things, right? Um, Alex seeing all these visions, all these things start to happen. It's all just this is one of those where you just none of what's happening really quite I quite buy, which it and it's what am I supposed to buy? Yeah, like you're either in or out. It's nonsense. Death has a plan. Like, yes, everything we do, literally, whether I live for another 80 years or I walk out and a fucking piece of a plane falls out of the sky and hits me, it's just shit that's happening and it's cause and effect. That's what it is. There is no grand design. You could make yourself go crazy thinking like this. But the interesting thing is like I have a running joke that's been going on in my head since I've seen these movies, what I like to call Final Destination moments, where something will happen and you'll be like, "Oh fuck, that was just as close to a Final Destination moment as you can get." Like one time, like it's several times at one of my old jobs, I kept almost getting stabbed by butcher knives that would fall because I had workers that would put knives up on shelves. Instead of putting them away when they were done, they would leave them up on a shelf and you wouldn't know they were there and you'd be reaching and you'd knock them off. I would knock them off the shelf almost like as if they were trying to kill me. But no, it's just laziness. But they always kept falling and almost stabbing me and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I know we all have those little moments where it's just like, whoa, where something bad almost happened to you. I'm not saying death, but I just love to call those Final Destination moments. Because nothing's really out to get you. But in this, the idea is that death is a thing, a force, if you will, that casts a shadow. It made me think of the title of that Family Guy episode, one of the first episodes they ever did, called Death Casts a Shadow, I think. Where death literally, you can see like this whoosh behind you. Another interesting thing about this movie is they're all going to Paris via their French class. But none of them know French. One guy tries to say French to him. They're like, what is it? What? Later, it's like the guy's trying to tell them, like, and he's looking at them, and they all, like, one guy, like, Kara Smith's character is like, what the fuck is he talking about? And even Clear is looking, I think she's looking at a French dictionary. She might be, or maybe she's reading, but she might be the only one in the entire class that knows French that's going on this trip. So that's kind of funny. They bring up two kind of recent moments in history back before the plane and everything goes down and after. They talk about John Denver was playing Rocky Mountain High. John Denver died in a plane crash. Bringing up an article that had Princess Diana's car she died in. That was sobering a little bit, realizing how long ago that was. John Denver plays a big part in this film, by the way, as far as Rocky Mountain High. It's playing all over this. This is like basically Death's like favorite song. Everywhere you go, somebody's trying to play that song. And I'm not the biggest John Denver fan. I think I like it more in context than I actually like it. So when I hear it in a soundtrack and it fits and it works, like whether it's like in Django Unchained and shit, I don't mind it because it actually fits the situation. But I don't go out and look for John Denver's Rocky Mountain High because it makes me think of Final Destination. And even though I don't believe in anything that's going on in Final Destination, I also just don't believe in tempting fate. Knock on wood. Also, this movie has one of the most... I actually had to turn the subtitles on because I couldn't believe that this was an actual line that one character utters to another one. Where it's on the plane, okay? And this is in the vision of what was going to happen right before the plane exploded. Character of Todd wants one of the pretty girls to sit next to him. But she doesn't want to. She wants to sit with her friend. So they go ask Alex if they'll switch. And he's, he says yes, and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. That fake ass bullshit where they're all pretend thankful. Whatever. Doesn't matter. He gets up and he goes to sit with Todd. And Todd's pissed off at him for not making the girl sit next to him. And he goes, this is a line that somebody wrote down and it actually got in there. And I literally turned the subtitles on to make sure that I wasn't hearing things. He goes, did you really think you were going to titty fuck them over Greenland? Wow. That's a line? That's a line in this movie. And nobody talks vulgar like this through the rest of the movie. Yeah, you hear fucks and shits, but it's more like, fuck you, and nobody says anything like that in the rest of the movie. It's like a blink and you'll miss it line, and I don't know why I was obsessed with finding out why did somebody need to say titty fuck. But they did. The milk balls on the floor. They keep, during the plane crash vision, they show milk balls that have fallen on the floor. And they keep showing them going back and forth as to show, like, how bad the crash is getting. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then when you see the milk balls, like, all fly away, it's like, oh, that's how bad this plane crash is. The milk balls flew down the aisle. Uh-oh. I think we're really in trouble. So, after everything happens, they wake up and they get off the plane, and the plane explodes and everything goes crazy. The FBI get calls in here. Now, again, I could see why this would have been an X-Files script because Mulder and Scully would have just appeared like boink, like fucking I Dream of Jeannie, right? Just appear like out of nowhere. No way would okay, I know that there's an FBI offices around there, but it just felt like so fast that they got there. But even weirder, and maybe less weird, for sure, is less weird is them getting there fast. More weird is that it's over. Like, they just do their interviews and they're like, this is a plane crash where a guy said that he knew the plane was going to blow up, and then they just have their interviews and they let them go. And yeah, we'll just monitor them. Oh, and only 2 FBI agents are monitoring an explosion where a whole shitload of people just blew the fuck up. And they just are there in the background. They are the police in this movie. Because the police, there are no police in this movie. It is just these 2 FBI agents and then like some cruisers later on. So yeah. But I know that this is only a 90-minute-ish movie, so you have to just either get on board or not get on board. But we skipped to 39 days later. Why 39? I don't know. But they're having the funeral, right? And I love how everybody looks around at each other. They all look like that. But they also look at each other with this blank. I don't know. It's what I like to call like the look of people in movies back then, of like teenage movies, where it's just it's like indifference and angst at the same time. But they have like the funeral for everybody, and this is where we get to see how everybody's so weirded out by Alex and what he did and everything. So now we're just going to start talking about like how they escape death, but now how we find out that death is still after them. So we have our first death. So everybody's like going on, moving on with their lives, trying to move on with their lives. The guilt is is overwhelming for some of them. And the character of Todd, played by Chad Danella, who was also in an X-File from, I believe, season 6 or 7. I want to say it's 6, where he plays a guy who has who's basically like a human shark, whose like eyeballs can pop out and stuff, and he's got like shark teeth and everything. Well, he goes home. He's just finished telling Alex, hey, when my dad gets over all this, we'll be friends again. We'll go to New York. We'll go see Yankees games, blah, blah, blah. So as awful as everything is, and his brother has died, and his family is reeling from all this, there's hope on the horizon. There is a, hey, we're going to move on eventually. Just got to wait out everything else. Well, it's just like this normal night, except Death is now after Todd. And we find this out because Death actually, like I said, has a shadow. He's looking in the mirror, and there's this like weird wobble of reality that looks like something moving. And Todd's like, what the fuck was that? And again, he's completely clean shaven, unlike me. And he grabs a straight razor without even putting it in the blade, like one of those like cartridges. And even though there's nothing there to shave, for drama's sake, he's like checking his neck and he cuts it because we need that extra scare. And a train's going by. Well, it's at this point that you see a water trail coming out from under the toilet that seems to be moving on its own. Now you could say, well, if there's a lot of water leaking from the toilet, it would make sense that it would start to flow out. So sure, why not? It's also like the clearest water I have ever, it's almost got a blue hue to it that's coming out of the toilet. It's very, very pretty toilet water. The prettiest toilet water I think I've ever fucking seen. And it's following him. And Jen Denver starts playing on the radio. And he nicely, smartly turns it off. And then we start intercutting between Todd and Alex. Alex having these weird vibes again, just like he was before he was on the plane. We can't explain it. Why? Ooh, air's moving in a weird spot. And an owl bangs into the window because I guess the owl couldn't see. And it's like, well, birds do that all the time. But it causes Alex to grab his magazine, his newspaper. No, it was his Penthouse magazine he's reading. Alex... Maybe that's why the titty fucking line is in there. Because maybe Alex is secretly just really sex obsessed. Because he's reading his Penthouse and he throws the Penthouse at the window. But it hits the fan. Shreds the magazine. And a little piece of paper lands on his leg. And it says Todd. The little piece that's left. The word that's left that's cut out. It's clearly something else says. T-O-D. And we cut back to Todd. So now Alex is like, oh God. Something's going to happen to Todd. Well, something does happen to Todd. Because he's taking somebody else's underwear off of like a clothesline in the shower. Somebody was drying their undergarments. They looked like bras and panties. So Todd was like probably taking his mom's underwear off the line in the shower. When the water gets under his foot, he slips. His neck hits the laundry line cord. It pops out of the wall. It wraps around his neck like a fucking cartoon. And then he falls into the shower. And his feet are covered in like water. And he can't get footing. Even though it's not a lot of water, it looks more like shampoo. And he just can't get a grip, and he can't reach the scissors that are just out of reach, and his eyes, the capillaries burst in his eyes, and Todd dies hanging there. Fine. But then, the water, and this is the only time you'll see this in the entire movie, is the water recedes back underneath the toilet like it never happened. There is no other thing that happens in this movie that indicates that death is actually following them. And I think that that's a mistake. I think it would have been more interesting to show this over and over, that death is like covering its tracks, because that's what it is. Death is covering its tracks here. It wants to have it wants Todd's death to be ruled a murder. Or a suicide. Sorry. No other place does it go that out for anyone. But Alex, like a lot of dumb, poorly written characters as far as like putting guilt on themselves, where we put them where they're written into situations that are going to make them obviously look guilty. He shows up at Alex's house, or Todd's house. Now, of course, Todd killed himself, but the FBI are there watching Todd's house after they got the call that Todd's dead. So they're just sitting outside, and here comes Alex. Why is Alex there? How did he know? Which would fit an X-File, because then Mulder would be like, what do you know? Why are you here? You know, and that's what these FBI agents are wondering, and how come this guy is always at these places, blah, blah, blah. And Claire's there too. Why is Claire there? What did she know? And she's like, there's all these people like around. You got the paramedics, the fire trucks, Todd's parents, Todd's dead body, Alex in the driveway, Claire hiding behind a tree, and the FBI in the street. That's a lot of people hanging around, and her just like trying to be discreet behind a tree when everyone can see her. Everybody can see him. So if everybody can see him, they just look and go, who's he talking to? Oh, the girl that's pretending she's not here. So she's there telling him to get out of there. Well, the next day, Alex goes over to Claire's house. And this is where we find out about her connection that she feels with Alex. And when we find that out when she shows him the spring statue art that she made. She's one of those people who makes found art. And it was one of the most pretentious sounding when she's describing it, it just sounds like pretentious artist talk. This is how you make me feel about how I have unexplained attraction to you, and it's just like I was like, it just suddenly turned into Peanuts talk, like wah, 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 wah. Like whatever, fine. But she's trying to say, the important thing she's trying to say here though is that she didn't see what he saw, but she felt it, and now they've got this connection that she feels when something's wrong as same as he sees something that's wrong. I think that's just to get the two characters really lined up and connected and make them the pair that they want them to be going forward. But in order to prove that Todd's death was from death and not a suicide, they break into the mortician's office, which is where we meet Tony Todd's character, Candyman himself, as this mortician named William Bloodworth. Tony Todd was also in one of the best X-Files ever made from season 2. I believe it was episode 3 or 4 called Sleepless, where he played a Vietnam veteran who had hasn't slept in over 20 years. And it's an amazing episode. It's fucking awesome. Well, he's here as this mortician who is our exposition dump guy. The guy who, I guess because he's seen so much death, that he's just gone off the fucking deep end. He's gone off the deep end, and he's telling them about there is no, accidents or mishaps or escapes from death. It's all just part of death's design and everything. And he's just being all creepy, but telling the audience. He's there to tell the audience what's going on. And we're just, you're just supposed to sit there and go, okay, all right, that's it. Okay, how does this guy know that? Because, I feel like the only way you'd know that is if you were on the list to die. And that maybe Tony Todd's killing people that instead of himself, like everywhere he goes, he's like, oh, I'm about to die. All right, screw that. I'm going to kill somebody else. And they'll skip me. But I don't think that's how it works either. If you want to believe that this is an actual thing, I don't think that's how it works. But for some reason, Tony Todd knows all. And that's fine. It's fine, because you get this really effective actor, this really atmospheric actor. He does what he needs to do. He's a badass, and he sounds creepy, and You know, when he has the line, uh, you know, when he's talking about death and he's like, you don't even want to fuck with that Mac Daddy. Remember when we used to say Mac? Okay, I never said Mac Daddy unless I was mocking someone, but the term Mac Daddy, fuck right off. That's dated. That has to be dated even for 2000, right? I mean, I say awesome and radical, so I can shut up. But like Mac Daddy just sounds so, I don't know. It's so fucking 90s. It's fucking. Um, and then he's like, "I'll see you soon." Well, we won't see him. These characters won't see him again, but we know what he means by that. But the whole idea now is that what if it's still our time? What if we're still meant to die? Right? Not we're going to die now, not later, and we have to find the patterns. And this is where, again, now death number 2. First we have Nine Inch Nails playing, so that was a nice, finally good, something good playing on the soundtrack here. But they're at a cafe, and everyone in the that got off the plane is somehow all in the same place at the same fucking time. Got Alex and Clear having coffee outside. You've got the teacher inside buying coffee. You've got Carter and Terry driving by in his Mustang or his muscle car. And then you've got them almost running Billy over, who's like right down the street. And when Carter almost runs over Billy, everybody convenes on that spot, and Carter, being a dick, is like, you don't control me. And that's his whole thing throughout like the majority of the movie, is him thinking that Devon Sawa is controlling his life, and he's that guy who's like, nobody controls my destiny, fuck death, and I'm like, the sooner this guy dies, the better. But like, unfortunately, folks, he is with us for the duration. And if you wonder why I'm doing this, it's because there's like this weird blonde hair that just won't go away. I think I need to cut it off. For those of you who are just listening to this, I'm not watching it, this is really driving me crazy. So after this video, I'm getting rid of it, and then you won't see it again until I forget to cut it later. So anyway, everybody's here on the corner, and everybody's arguing, right? And Alex just previously had seen a bus in the reflection of the window of the coffee shop, but he turns around and the bus isn't there. Then everyone gets there, and poor Amanda Detmer, who plays the girlfriend of Carter's character, her name is Terry. She does not have a big enough part. She's just the nice girlfriend of a dick. She's at it. You guys want to fucking deal with this and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life worrying about all this. And if you guys do, you can just drop fucking dead. And she walks into the street and is immediately run over by a bus. It's it's probably the most iconic death from the movie, because it started that kind of trend, I think, of instant death out of nowhere. I swear to God, this, like, at least for this time period, her getting hit by the bus would have been like one of the first memes or GIFs or GIFs or however you want to call it. But that's a thing. And she just gets splat and blood goes all over everybody. And it's amazing, actually. So Alex then, when he starts thinking about the pattern, trying to figure out Death's design, he realizes that the problems that were on the plane, the order they follow the trajectory of the explosion and how it started on one end and got to where it hit the other end and blew up the plane. And along the way, all the people that would have died. So it starts with Todd and goes to, Terry, and then it's like everybody's death is happening in order again. So Todd died first, then Terry. Now it's moving on to the next person. That's all ridiculous and insane and BANANAS. But whatever. Here we go. But the next person on the list now is Miss Luton. And Miss Luton, like I said, is played by Kristen Cloak. And I really like Kristen Cloak a lot as a character actor. She's another Canadian television show staple. Like I said, she's married to Glenn Morgan. She was in a really great episode of The X-Files called The Field Where I Died, where she plays like a person with multiple personality disorder or dissociative disorder. Those kind of things, those terminology for people is changing all the time, or like, what do they call it? Oh man, there's too many to. I'm trying to remember the other more common phrase, but she plays somebody she's just really good. Well, in this, this death is just cruel. Like cruel. Like over the top, like I'm going to make sure this chick is dead. And she's also the one that's also just feeling the most survivor's guilt. She's quitting her job and she's moving away because she can't be around any of this anymore. And she's afraid of Alex. And Alex, now knowing that she's next, is outside her fucking house like a creep, scaring her even more. You know, they write it again, like, so she calls the cops, the FBI shows up and takes him away. So she's supposed to feel better. But this is really just so that Alex can have a better alibi, except then Alex somehow, well, we'll get there. So while the FBI have him and drove all the way back to the station to interrogate him, and how they know he didn't like fucking blow anything up, but they don't understand like why he thinks he's controlling all these things and everything, and he's talking really creepy about, if I can do this and your death design and you're a part of death. You know, they should just be throwing away the key at this point because he sounds crazy. Well, meanwhile, she's wanting to make a cup of tea, but she's freaking out. She sees Death's shadow in the teapot. She throws freaks out and thinks she sees something, and she throws the hot tea. She decides to not have hot tea. She switches to vodka. She puts ice cubes in the hot mug, cold vodka on the ice cubes in a hot cup. What do you get? You get a cracked mug. So the vodka is leaking everywhere. She's all over the floor, a trail all the way to her computer. She moves the coffee cup over the computer, leaking vodka over the computer. For some reason, she does not notice all this leaking out. There's probably no more fucking vodka in the glass to even do this, because she walked the distance that she travels, literally, and how much is on the floor. You can see how much is on the floor. The vodka fries inside the computer. She sits down and she's like, oh, what's wrong? There's like a little bit of smoke coming out, and the fucking computer screen explodes. I don't think that's how it works, but apparently if you drop vodka in the back of your computer and it shorts out, it'll make the computer screen explode in your face. And the glass from the screen hits her in the neck, and she's bleeding out all over the place. And she's panicking and scared and terrified. And she goes to the kitchen to try to find something to help her, to wrap around her throat or whatever, get her phone. Well, the sparks from the computer ignite the vodka on the floor because that's how much vodka's on the floor, that it creates a trail all the way back to the stove that's still on because she didn't turn it off when she decided not to have tea. The vodka goes up the stove, hits the gas, blows up in front of her, lands her on the floor. She's bleeding out. She's reaching for the towels that are on the sink right above her, like the counter next to the sink. She grabs the towels, but what the towels are on is a whole fucking rack of butcher knives that fall off. And there we go. We're back to the butcher knives. All right, butcher knives on countertops where you don't see them. The knives fall down and hit her, and one of them hits her dead in the fucking chest. At the same time, Alex gets there because he ran all the way from the police station back to her house. Yeah. Just in time for her to be terrified in front of him, and he goes to try to get the knife out of her. Another explosion happens, and the chair falls over and hits the knife as if to just really make sure she's dead, and shoves the knife all the way through her, and she dies. Terrified, and it's so cruel. It is just such a cruel death. And I know that most people are probably like, wow, that's an amazing death, but I just saw it as, man, Glenn, you really wanted your wife to die in that scene, didn't you? And did you talk about this? Like, hey, honey, how bad do you want to die in this movie? I don't mean like do you not want to die? Can we maybe let you live? No, how bad do you want to die? Like, how bad do you want to get it? And she must have said, yeah, fucking really give it to me, because this is the worst death in the movie. It's like the most like impactful, like holy fuck. And it's John Denver's playing the whole time. And she just dies with that horrible image of not understanding any of it, and then Alex grabs the knife like an idiot, leaves it there. Now, not that they're going to find any prints, because as soon as he leaves, there's Billy for some reason driving past his teacher's house. Hey, Alex! And the entire house explodes. So I guess, you know, the fire would probably burn the fingerprints off. But that happens. Well, they're in the car. Like, Clear shows up. Billy shows up. They're all driving away, right? And Billy somehow knows that the blood was caramelized and that there were scorched burn marks from his... Like, how did... Okay, hardly any time has gone by, and yet they have all these specific details about Miss Luton's blood being caramelized and his footprints being scorched into the property that he was, you know, running from her house. How does he know that? And that's like, that would be privileged evidence. And, you know, they're convinced that he knows, you know, how everybody's going to die. And Billy asks, am I going to live to see the Jets win the Super Bowl? And I'm like, nobody has lived to see the Jets win the Super Bowl in a long time. So sorry, Billy. You're not missing out on anything. The New York Jets have still not won the Super Bowl, and I don't know when they will. But hey, I'm not that's not a New York Jets knock. I live where the Chicago Bears are, and if you know about the Chicago Bears right now, they're not much better off. So that is not me dissing on the Jets. I just think it's kind of funny. So we get, though, to death number 4, where Carter's now picked him up, and they're like telling him the whole thing and how he's finally realizing, he finally gets it. They're all on the list. They're all going to die. Until, you know, death is just going to keep coming after him like Charlie on Lost, which is another thing I was thinking about, like when Desmond was telling him, like Desmond seeing how Charlie's going to die, very much like Alex here, well, similar to how Alex is seeing things. And Desmond keeps trying to save Charlie's life on Lost. Spoilers for Lost, motherfuckers. And so that's just what it was making me think, that it was like every time Charlie avoids death, there's another thing coming for him. It course corrects. Well, Carter loses it, and he decides to kill everybody in the car, because what's the point? If we're all going to get killed, I can at least join my girlfriend in the afterlife. And it's like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy. But Alex sees a ripped seatbelt and then a train. The seatbelt is not ripped. There was no train, but he's seeing these visions happening now. And Carter stops on the tracks and says, like, I'm just going to sit here because fuck it. And apparently Billy also forgets how to open a car door. I would think in a situation like that, the first thing he'd remember how to do is open a car door. But he doesn't. And they sit there dramatically for way too long trying to get Billy to open up the car door and let them out. Once they do, Carter is still adamant that he's just going to sit there and this isn't his time to die. So then when he goes to start his car, it doesn't start. Which I was like, great. But Alex saves him by ripping, when he pulls him, he rips the seatbelt, making the whole loop come true or whatever the vision he saw. And so they're all happy, and they're talking about, oh my God, I saved you, which means that, death is skipping, we can intervene and we can skip deaths and blah, blah, blah. And Billy, though, poor Sean William Scott, he's like telling everybody, we need to get away from him. He's next, and I don't want to be like you. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die with, and a piece of metal that's underneath the train this whole time, that as it's going by, hits another piece of metal and sends the metal flying out from underneath the train and basically cuts Billy's head off from like here up. And it's the funniest death. And that's so you got Todd's that's just kind of anticlimactic, but sets up the whole death is stalking them thing by showing the water recede. And you got Terry's that is just out of nowhere. You got Kristen Cloak's Mrs. Luton's death that is just fucking over the top and needlessly cruel. And then you have Billy's that's just funny. His head just goes flying off. And they're like, they don't even talk about the guy who died. The only thing Alex is talking about after this happens is, oh my God, this is what we can do to fix it. It was, I saved you, it skipped him and went to him. So if we keep doing this, it'll just keep going around and like, we can cheat it and we can figure out how to do it. So they get Alex to this cabin where Alex death proofs the whole thing because he's apparently next to die. And this is where Alex is just completely gone off the rocker. He's talking to Death like he's standing right next to him. Hey, come on, motherfucker. You know, you thought you could have me and everything. But Alex realizes that he made a mistake and that he's thinking about the vision order of death. In reality, he never moved seats. So really, it's clear that is about to die and not him. And this is when it just gets completely out of control. Death is coming after this girl like it's there's no shadow or nothing, but it starts with an out of control electric wire that's bouncing around her car. She goes to save her dog because dog, you know, we love our animals. And the wind and storm is raging and it blows their laundry pole, you know, one of those old ones that you have in the yard that has a bunch of like spinners. It flies over, hits the pool, the water comes out, the electricity hits the ground. She barely gets out of the way. She gets back in her house, but now the electricity is causing, the problems with the electricity is causing everything in her house to start exploding everywhere. So the house is literally trying to kill her. As she gets into the garage, she tries to drive the car out of the garage. The garage door tries to attack her by falling down and going through the windshield. She gets stuck. The electric wire ends up back in the hood of her car. Alex shows up. He tries to help, but what ends up happening is like he triggers some events that cause an oxygen or a propane tank to go flying underneath her car. So now her car's about to explode because it just really has to kill her. And just save Clear's life, he grabs the wire and blows himself back, and it skips her. And he actually lives, and this is them closing the loop. And the FBI, just, you know, all they are there is to bear witness. Again, very Mulder and Scully-like. And we cut to 6 months later, right? And we find out Alex is fine. Alex lived, and they are actually back in France, even though he makes the joke of, I can't believe we even got on a plane to get here. And I'm like thinking, yeah, if I survived all this, I probably wouldn't be getting on a plane, but, you know, we must carry on, right? We must move on with our lives. We can't live in fear, right? And they get to Paris, and I swear to God, in Paris, there's a guy playing John Denver on the guitar, and he looks exactly like Taika Waititi. I'm pretty sure it's not, but it looks just like him. And they start going over the death list again and how things happen, and they're kind of over it, and they're kind of like, this is like the Alex's character, he survived, but he can't get past it because they've moved on. They think they're over it, but the way he's lived and the way he's seen things and everything, he can't stop. And it's all gone back around, and they figure out that it's probably back on Alex that he's going to die. And Clear, he starts getting the vibes again. And Clear gets the vibes, and she sees the bus that he's about to walk into. We're about to have the splat times 2. But she saves him by saying stop, and Carter knocks him out of the way from getting hit by the bus. So you see where this is going. And Carter's like, hey, man, I saved you, you know. And he's like, but who's next? As you see that there was a whole bunch of chain of events that happened after the bus that causes this sign to come and smash Carter right in the back. We don't even see it. He's like, who's next? As it's just about to hit him. And the movie's over. And it's kind of like a cliffhanger, really, because nothing is really solved. They've lived this long, but we know death is still swinging back around. And like a lot of horror movies, right? The people that survive, you find out at the end, oh, the bad guy or the killer is still out there walking, and in this case, the killer is death. You know, even like the end of I Know What You Did Last Summer, right? She gets away. It's been a long time. she's getting ready to take a shower, and the killer is in the shower, bursts out. So it's like it happens all the time. It happens in Friday the 13th. It happens in Halloween, blah, 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 except this time, those are people. Those are physical beings, and in this corporeal force of nature that's still coming back to get them. And it's as bananas as it is, it's a lot of fun. And again, this is the movie, this is my guilty pleasure series where I don't really care how they die or who lives and who dies. All the characters aren't that important to me. But it is a whole lot of fun to watch the cause and effect and everything, and how they keep upping the ante for each movie and what they can do, and all the different people that they got to be in these over the years. I have not actually seen like the last two. So next year we will be talking at the very least about Final Destination 2. I might be making most of next year about sequels because we got Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. We got like 4 or 5 more Final Destinations. So we might be doing a bunch of sequels next year. So if you like this review, please hit the like button. Comment, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. I really appreciate you, everybody that watches these. This is a lot of fun. I can't believe how long I have talked about Final Destination. You practically could have watched most of the movie by now. So here we are. If you hated everything I said, though, we can give you the last hour of your life back. So if you like this, please look away. Wear shades if you have a sensitivity to light. Do not look right into this bastard right here, as we'll give these people a better memory. See you on the next episode, guys. Bye.
Could incite a fury that could terrorize even the Grim Reaper. And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy.